Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, joined by Matt Cassel and the Senator Phil Perry. We're going to get into the matchup against the New Orleans Saints. What kind of problems will Jameis Winston pose? Also, Alex Guerrero, Tom Brady's body coach and the co-founder of TB12. I went down to Tampa Bay and I talked to him a little bit about Tom Brady's regimen. How's he able to do what he's doing? All that and more on Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast.
World champion, and there ain't nothing you can do about it.
All right, there they are, Matt Cassel, Phil Perry. Matt, when you're playing out of conference against a quarterback like Jameis Winston, who has joined a new team, what are the challenges that a quarterback is going to pose to a defense when you really don't have that much backlog of experience with them?
Right. It's always interesting when you're going up against a new opponent, particularly this offense is going to be this offense, right? The structurally, Sean Payton, they do what they do kind of, but there's going to be subtle differences throughout of they're going to try to play to hit Jameis Winston's strengths, right? And so the first week you watch that film against Green Bay and they had a fantastic game, and he didn't throw for that many yards, but he threw 5 touchdown passes, and they come out versus Carolina. Carolina was able to pressure him all day long, force him into 2 bad interceptions. I mean, they had six first downs the entire game. So when you're watching it, they didn't have any run game. I mean, they haven't got Alvin Kamara started this year. They're obviously missing Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith. So they're missing pieces of this offense that will make them more dynamic. So it's interesting. I think for the Patriots, it's all about creating pressure, stopping the run, and putting the ball in Jameis Winston's hands, because Time has told us that he's going to, at some point or another, force the ball downfield, make a bad decision, and that's what the New England Patriots have capitalized on continuously. We saw it last week against the Jets.
Yeah, I wonder how much Jameis has really changed, right? Because he was in Tampa Bay in a different offense where he throws 30 interceptions his last year there, and he's just so aggressive, Matt, that you knew as a defense he was going to give you some opportunities. Do you think time has changed him as a quarterback at all? He's obviously, since the last time the Patriots saw him, that was 2017. He's 4 years older. He spent some time as a backup. He's in a different system with a different coach who is widely regarded as one of the best offensive minds in football for a long time. Is he still the same guy, though, that they saw in 2017, just in a different system and on a different team? Or do you think he's changed?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to tell at this point. We've seen a small sample size, right? And the first week you say, wow, he came out, good coaching. Sean Payton's got him going in the right direction. He's taking care of the ball. We saw him in preseason as well, go out and had a tremendous preseason. But as we all know, preseason's much different than when you get into real ball games and get the teams and the defenses start game planning for that individual in particular. So it's going to take some time for us to actually watch how he matures in this offense, how he goes through this first part of the year. And if he's truly the guy, and if he's changed those qualities that we saw that really got him out of Tampa Bay and ended him up in New Orleans. So it'll be really interesting. But right now it's just a mixed bag. It's Jekyll and Hyde right now. And we have no idea what you're going to get when you watch Jameis Winston play.
Phil, I look at the Saints and I see a team that is basically in the position the Patriots were in 2020. They've just moved on from their franchise quarterback. They're trying to reboot. They're in a little bit of salary cap jail. And to me, this is a game that the Patriots, if we line up all the games the Patriots are going to have against just different opponents, this is really, by opponent quality, it's kind of a must win. You have to beat the teams that are worse than you. And I think the New Orleans Saints are worse than the Patriots. Agreed?
Agreed. Especially because the Saints are going to be without a couple of their best players. No Michael Thomas. So that receiving core, I mean, that's one of the receiving cores you could look at across the league and say, okay, well, the Patriots group is definitely better than these guys. There's probably not that many of those across football right now, but I would say the Saints are one. I think even you look at the other side of the ball and they're going to be without Marshawn Lattimore as well, who's their best corner. So I think just overall talent wise, there is some talent on this Saints team, and they're a good run defense. It looks like once again this year. And that's something they've consistently been pretty good at under Dennis Allen. But otherwise, when you look at the quarterback spot, you look at the receiver spot, the corner spot, these are all premium positions in today's NFL. And you could look at the Patriots and say, okay, talent wise, you should win this gun.
I have to agree, because you look at New Orleans right now, and you said Lattimore, but then Kawan Alexander, you got Marcus Davenport, who's another big part of this team that's out right now. So they're missing a lot of pieces. They've been through a lot, obviously, with the hurricane that came through. They've been displaced. They had a lot of coaches miss. So they're going through their own stuff right now as an organization and trying to get back on track. And when you have that come up, because every team goes through it throughout the course of the season, unfortunately, they got hit with the injury bug early. But when that does occur, and you have to take advantage of teams like this, because the New England Patriots are the more talented team. They're the healthier team, and they should be able to go out and beat this team come Sunday.
There's going to be a measure of curiosity as to how the Patriots attack the Saints. And given the first 2 weeks, the amount of underneath throws that Mac Jones has delivered, and the scrutiny on his not going down the field has obviously grown. And here's Mac Jones talking about going down the field and when he ought to do that.
Yeah, I think obviously you want to score touchdowns, and you can't be too conservative or too not. You kind of just have to do what you do and read your reads, and the points will come. But at the same time, sometimes you have to know when to call it quits on a play. Like, maybe, hey, this doesn't feel right, or something went wrong. So you kind of just have to know when to call it quits and throw it away and move on to the next play. And sometimes the next play is a kick, so you just have to accept that. And it's hard when you're really competitive and you want to keep the play alive, or you want to hold the ball, or whatever the situation may be. But at the same time, you kind of have a clock in your head of when things are supposed to happen. So.
All right. So I'm sure over the course of your career, Matt, you probably heard times when the media is like, well, how come Cassel doesn't throw down the field at all? Why doesn't he press it down the field? Is it hard to keep that walled off and not enter into your decision-making process when you're hearing that folks are saying you got to throw it? You got to throw it further.
Right. I mean, everybody's going to have their opinion, and we all want to see the big play, right? We all want to see you push the ball down the field. But at the same time, your number one priority as a quarterback, and for any quarterback, is take care of the ball. And he's done a tremendous job of that. Number two is take what they give you. And right now, over these first 2 weeks, when you actually go back and watch the film, there's not a ton of opportunities where I'm sitting there going, he should have pushed that ball downfield. He checked the ball down instead of going down to a guy on an in cut or a deeper play. So I think he's doing a tremendous job of taking what the defense gives you, putting him in a good position, and he's not turning over the ball. We saw Zach Wilson, and what his ability was they were trying to push the ball downfield. Well, it's not always the right choice, right? You're going to force balls into coverage just because you want to try to take shots and push the ball downfield. When you start doing that, you get yourself in trouble. You put your team in bad situations. So Mac Jones right now, they want him to play consistent, which he has, efficient, that he's protected the ball. And so he's got to continue that play. Those shots will come. And we saw it in the third quarter when they did the little trap pass and hit Hunter Henry down the seam. Those plays start to pop. And so they'll try to start taking away that underneath coverages. And that's when you get the behind that defense behind that second level, and you can take your shots. But right now, I mean, I don't have any critique on him, missing shots downfield or not pushing the ball because he's scared to do it. It just hasn't really come up based on the defensive structure that he's faced these first few weeks.
Yeah, I would look at it too and say, when it comes to this Patriots offense, Mac Jones is down the list in terms of my concerns on that side of the ball, which is amazing to say 2 weeks into his rookie season. But for me, it starts with the offensive line, and I'm going to write a little bit about their run game for my preview before this Saints game, because again, the Saints are pretty good against the run. And to me, this is what the Patriots offense was supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be punch you in the mouth, run over you because we're bigger up front than your defense is, because you're ready to play spread offenses across the league and you've gotten smaller. We've gone the other way. We've got 2 tight ends. We've got 350-pound Micah Wenu. We've got 400-pound Trent Brown, and we're coming at you. And to me, the run game, while we've seen a couple of explosive runs, I'm not sure the offensive line has really performed up to the level that we thought it would. And I think they're going to need to get better. Obviously, getting Trent Brown back would go a long way in accomplishing that goal. But to me, Tom, that really is the primary concern, both from a protection standpoint and a run game standpoint, because it's not like there have been huge holes opened up for these guys. Even Damian Harris's long touchdown run the other day, he had to break through some contact right at the line of scrimmage there and then run through 6 more tackles. So, you can't expect that week to week. You got to clear some more space for those guys.
It's interesting, Matt, when you look at this, the Patriots, they're 1-1 and they've played fine in 2 games, but their challenges have mostly been on the offensive and defensive lines, which we presumed were going to be strengths for this team, especially, the offensive line. As a result, and because they have those tools in-house to make those things better, I feel like, okay, they'll tweak it, they'll fix it, and they're not in a bad spot by any stretch of the imagination.
They're not in a bad spot. I mean, they've got all the offensive line talent. They just haven't performed up to the level that of our expectation and probably their expectation up to this point. And when you look at them, they're not controlling the line of scrimmage. They're giving up pressures. Mac Jones is getting hit, which is why some of the time he can't hold on to the ball and get the ball downfield. And so they have to perform better. This is a week that is going to be a challenge against Dennis Allen. I mean, they went 55 games straight without giving up a 100-yard rusher until last week, week 14. 55 games straight without giving a 100-yard rusher. They've been at the top of the league for the last 3 years in their run defense. I think that they're top 3, maybe they're number 1 last year in run defense. This is an outstanding defensive unit in the way that they aggressively play up front. So they're going to have a challenge this week to get it going. And the big thing that I want to see this weekend is, can they produce more production on 1st and 2nd down? Because again, statistics can lie sometimes, right? You look at a stat line, and yes, the Patriots overall, you look at them and say they've been rushing the ball pretty well, but you exclude some of those big runs by Damian Harris, and you're talking about we're averaging probably around 3 yards a pop, maybe.
Right.
And so with that being said, they have to get more production in this run game early on. And it starts with just schematically, how are we going to attack this defense? But this is a defense that's going to present a challenge. So I think this is going to be another game that Mac Jones is going to have to go out, be effective, be efficient in the pass game to set up the run game later on in the game so that they can be more effective.
Yeah. I wonder too, if the tight ends situation has worked out the way that they wanted it to thus far. I mentioned the offensive line is a little bit of a concern for me, and the tight ends are new, and they're definitely going to produce more in the passing game the more they get that protection figured out. I think Hunter Henry has had multiple chances at big plays both weeks against the Dolphins and against the Jets, and his stat line easily could be a lot better than what it is right now. But I'm not sure he's the kind of player who, when you have Johnny Smith dealing with a little bit of an injury, which he was going into that Jets game, he was limited in practice with a hip. Can you rely on Hunter Henry to be a move you around in the run game type of player? Because when those tight ends are on the field, that should be part of your advantage, is you can do whatever the defense dictates that you should be doing. If they go big, you can throw it. That's great. I know Hunter Henry can be a player in the passing game. If they go small and you want to run it, can he hold his own? And that to me is still a little bit of a question. I think there have been moments in both weeks here where you just see him get moved, and he's very clearly not Rob Gronkowski. And I know that nobody is, but when it comes to that part of the game, and if you want to be a tough, grinded out, move people at the line of scrimmage kind of team, can Hunter Henry be used in that fashion? I'm still not sure, Tom. I guess that's where I stand on it right now.
All right. So that's plenty about the upcoming game. There's another upcoming game that we're going to be focusing on. Kind of already have. I'm down in Tampa Bay right now.
Oh yeah.
Doing some advanced work.
Jumping ahead.
Is that a bad thing? I mean,
advanced scouting. Advanced scouting.
It's advanced scout. That's a great way to put it, Matt. This is something the NFL teams do all the time.
All the time.
And I got people on Twitter saying it's so disrespectful, Tom, to be covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm like, no one cares what I'm doing. The Saints will be fine. I can cover whatever I want to, and it's not going to
Tom
impact
Curran's not playing
game.
on Sunday, people.
100%. Thank you very much. While I was down here in Tampa Bay, I spent time with Alex Guerrero, Tom Brady's body coach, and his longtime close friend and also business partner. We talked a little bit about the process of getting his body ready. Why is he an outlier, or is he even an outlier?
How much of a trailblazer do you think Tom, as an individual and in what he's accomplishing late in his career, will be for professional athletes first?
It's an interesting question, because a lot of what you hear in the media and everywhere else, that Tom is just an outlier. He's just different than everybody else. So we'll just put him over here, and we'll talk about everybody else over here. And it's funny to me because he's not an outlier. He's just like everybody else. He's not an enigma. he cuts and he bleeds and he breaks and we just put him together. And so when if other athletes can't see what he's doing and be inspired by that, then it's because it goes back to your will question, I think. Now I think they just don't have the drive, the dedication, the will to want to be that great. So now I say, are you tired or are you uninspired? Because I think professional athletes at that level, they just get tired. Or are they uninspired? I don't know. I asked the question. So whether you're uninspired because your body doesn't feel good anymore, now you're just uninspired, or are you really truly tired? So I look at some of the guys playing today that are older, and I'm thinking, wow, like we provided them with all this information. Like, why aren't they using it? They think like they can go change their diet and they can play like Tom. Like, wait a minute, what? No, it doesn't have nothing to do with his diet. It has to do with how much time we put into recovering through pliability. Now, if you don't want to do that, now you're just uninspired. You don't have the will or the grit or the determination. Early on in Tom's career, this is our 16th year together. And early on, we got together. I could see him 3 days every other week, for example. I could come out to New England and I would treat him 6 days a month. Well, the 6 days a month turned into, every day. And now it's twice a day. And we'll do an evaluation of his body, see how his body's feeling in the morning. And then it'll consist of pliability treatments through his legs, hips, hip flexors, obviously his arm. And then he'll go off to his meetings and he'll come back in for right before practice. We make sure his arm is firing at 100%, and all the muscles that correlate to his throwing motion are firing evenly together. Then he goes out and practices for 2 hours. As soon as practice is over, he's back in. We do full body pliability treatments again, because the idea is to get the brain to create neural pathways of behavior. What does that mean? So the brain and the body are very closely connected, right? So your brain doesn't know right or wrong. It doesn't know good or bad. It just knows what you teach it. Right. So, for example, if Tom goes and throws, I want him to throw, let's just say 200 footballs every day. Now I need to create neural pathways from his brain through his nervous system to the muscles to be able to support throwing 200 footballs every day without being sore. Right. So his brain goes, okay, I understand. This is how you want me to function. You want me to throw 200 footballs a day? We're not going to have any swelling or inflammation because we never allow the body to get into a negative neuromuscular state. So when he goes and does the load of a lift, I work his muscles, get him ready for the lift. He goes and does the heavy load of his lift. I work his muscles right after the lift. So his brain is always wiring long and unrestricted, regardless of what the movement is or regardless of what the load is. So same thing with throwing. I know you're going to go throw 200 footballs a day, so we're going to work all the muscles that correlate to your throwing motion. We're going to keep them long and unrestricted. As soon as you come in from practice, we're going to keep them long and unrestricted, so the brain goes, okay, this really isn't a heavy load for me.
Matt, the upshot of a lot of the stuff I talked with Alex about relative to why Tom Brady is able to do what he's doing at 44 relates to, hey, if you're going to commit and spend the time with diet, nutrition, hydration, and then all this pliability, you can do this. Did you work with Alex at all when you were in New England?
I worked with him in New England. I worked with him for a year in Kansas City as well. And so it is a process of, as he works through the muscle patterns and all that stuff, is loosening, lengthening, doing all that. And I'll say this though, everybody's genetic makeup is different, right? And so you're talking about, if you're talking about a defensive back or you're talking about a wide receiver, well, their hamstrings are much tighter than Tom Brady's. No matter what you do to them, I'm sure that they just are genetically different. So everybody's slightly different. This has been something that's worked extremely well for Tom. I enjoyed the work. I thought Alex was exceptional at what he does. At the same time, I didn't see the same benefits over the long term that maybe Tom did. And again, though, Tom gets to work with him day in and day out, even throughout the course of an offseason. You just heard him break down their kind of daily regimen, which is very unique for a player to have somebody there at a facility that can work with you constantly on all your muscle groups and dedicate the time to doing so, right? So that's definitely part of his longevity is being able to stay healthy, is just his muscle patterns and his, I guess, what do you call it?
Elasticity, pliability, long, and
pliability.
Yeah.
Long.
But I mean, it's 3 rub downs a day, Phil. And I just don't know if you could run an NFL team in which all of the 53 players are getting 3 rub downs a day?
I don't think you can. And I wonder, if there's a way to kind of middle it with the TB12 method. I mean, it sounds like there are a lot of players on the Bucs. I know there were a lot of players here with the Patriots that were going to see Alex a fair amount, but they weren't all getting 3 rub downs a day, I don't think. So can you find just kind of a happy medium there? And is that what you were trying to do, Matt, when you were working with him, especially in Kansas City? Because he probably wasn't in Kansas City full time, right? So like, is there a way to kind of go 50% on the TB12 method, or do you have to be all in if you're trying to do it?
Well, that's the thing is when you have him at your access and he's living in the same state and city and is at the facility on a daily basis, that's one thing. But like for me, he was able to come out for 2 or 3 days once every other week. So that's much different than, because there's some weeks where you feel like I need so much treatment this week because I got the hell beat out of me last week. Whereas then there's other games where you're like, I don't feel that bad. Like I feel pretty good. My body feels good. And so it just depended on the game, the nature, the violence of the game. And if you took a lot of hits that week, that depends on how your body feels that next week and whether or not you feel you need more treatment or less treatment. Whereas Tom, it's just part of his regimen, right? It's part of his regimen is to see him 3-4 times a day and make sure that his body's feeling exactly the way it needs to before he goes out. Prior to meetings, before practice, after practice, it sounds like after workout. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a benefactor of being Tom Brady and bringing in your own guy who can do all the things that you want him to do.
You're basically the same age as Tom. Do you believe that you could, if you had devoted that amount of energy and time to it and had the money to spend on a 3 rub down a day guy, do you believe you could still play at a high level?
I mean, I still believe that I could play for sure, but it would definitely, the older that you get, your body definitely changes. You start to feel those bumps and bruises more. The little aches and stuff like that, it definitely surmounts. So you need to actually take care of yourself so much more, whether it's cold tub, hot tub, but then the massage, what I can't even say Massaging? No, like all the things that you do to take care of your body, you definitely have to step that up the later you get in your career. And, then there's that balancing act too of when you finally do get done with your day, you got to dedicate your time to your body, but then you have your family and you have all those things. And so not everybody has, like I said, the access that Tom has on a daily basis and also the organizational support to have somebody come in and constantly be there just to cater to your every need. And that's something that, Tom has been able to utilize throughout his career.
Tom, how dare you suggest Matt Cassel can't play at a high level right now?
We
were talking about this guy getting on a roster, maybe even here, just get him local so that we can have him live on the pod a little more often.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that is unfair on my part. And I mean, we'll take him out in the parking lot at some point. Well, he was up here this past week. I'm not sure when he's going to be back, but we'll run some routes.
Thrown some routes.
We'll run
next
some routes.
Week. I'll be there next week.
Good.
Yeah. We'll go over. We'll maybe get you run some option routes, maybe some skinny posts.
I'd like to run a whip route.
Oh, whip route. Yes. Okay. In and out or out and in?
I would prefer the in and out.
Okay, cool. More of a return route.
You stay away from the middle of the field. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Matt, is there a concern at all about the Patriots in general looking past the New Orleans Saints to the very celebrated matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
No, Belichick won't have it. All right. Like that's not what they do here. I keep getting the question of, are they going to look past this game and look at the next game and see what it means? And look, everybody knows it's Tom Brady coming up, but within that building, there's only so much time you get to spend on a singular opponent. And so there has been nothing said about Tampa Bay. Everything is all about the New Orleans Saints. The, Wednesday practice, first and second down. You have to focus primarily on the first and second down install, figuring out what they do well on first and second down, what the game plan is. And you got third down, you got red zone Friday. And so that's just the course of every week. And they do a tremendous job of every week, not looking ahead. We're going up against this opponent. This is who we're focusing on. This is where all of our attention is. They won't even mention it.
Phil, should this be a beatdown?
No. Shouldn't be a beatdown. We still don't know enough about the Patriots to suggest that they should be beating down anybody. I mean, that Jets game should have been closer. I mean, if Zach Wilson doesn't throw, just, I would say 3 ridiculous interceptions, that's a game. I mean, we're going into late second quarter, end of the first half there, and it's 10-3. I think with the Jets with the ball. I mean, that was contested. And I would say because of the coaching staff in New Orleans, and even because of the quarterback, who is better than Zach Wilson at this point in time, you have to give them their proper respect and assume that this will be a more tightly contested football game.
Can a coach keep it close, Matt?
Coaching definitely can help. There's no doubt in terms of how they game plan, how they see the field, how they call the game, understanding defense, and all of that. Both sides of the ball. You got Sean Payton, you got Dennis Allen. Both of these guys have been in the league for a really long time. Both have coached at a really high level and can put they've shown and proven that they can put their players in a position to be successful. So when people say, should this be a beatdown? I don't think that we can ever say right now that this is going to be a beatdown until we see the Patriots go out and convincingly dominate week in and week out, or consistently for a few weeks in a row against good opponents. This is going to be a good opponent, regardless of what they did last week against Carolina. This is still an opponent that you have to respect and have to know that through their coaching staff and also a lot of the players that they have on that team, that they're going to come for a battle.
All right. Going to be a good one this weekend. I have the Patriots winning. They'll go into the Bucs game at 2-1. Any differences of opinion on that?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, they'll win this. I've got it at 24-17.
I like that. That'd probably be under your Las Vegas total, I would think. That's going to be under. I don't know what the total is, but it's got to be higher than 41. All right. For Matt Cassel, for Phil Perry, for the Skull Crusher, John Henry, I'm Tom Curran, and we appreciate you being with us.